Mark Mears is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, consultant, and visionary business leader. He has a significant track record of building stakeholder value, which is driving innovation and profitable growth among some world-class and high-profile brands. Today, he serves as the founder and chief growth officer for his own consulting firm, where he inspires individuals, teams, and organizations to find purpose in fulfilling their true growth potential while making positive and lasting differences in the world. He's also a member of the Senior Leader Network within Conscious Capitalism, a global organization whose mission he shares about elevating humanity through business. I've invited Mark here today for what promises to be a purpose-filled conversation that started several months ago after we connected during an online presentation where we had a common interest. So Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm so delighted to be back to speak with you and also your listeners and viewers on a subject near and dear to my heart, and look forward to our conversation.
Yes, and if we reflect on the name of the podcast, it is near and dear to my heart as well. So we connected several months ago, and I immediately knew that I needed to invite you on to talk about purpose. I've discovered that you have a book called Purposeful Growth Revolution. I'll hold it up here. So as you're looking on your online booksellers, this is what it looks like. And it is called, as I said, Purposeful Growth Revolution, 4 Ways to Grow from Leader to Legacy Builder. So as we wrap up season 3, and this will be the final episode of season 3, Mark, so we're going to put an exclamation point on this season with the idea of purpose. I'd like to know what first attracted you to even be thinking about purpose. How did this come into your world?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. You've heard the term, it's always darkest before the dawn. Mm-hmm. This was not only literally, but figuratively the case in my life when several years ago, again, I think it was February 21st, 2013, and I was serving as the president of a casual restaurant chain that was about $500 million in annual revenue, 145 units in 24 states, and we were based in Orange County, California. And I had been recruited from the Cheesecake Factory as the chief marketing officer to serve as president of this new brand with kind of 3 different edicts, really. Turn the brand around, it's double-digit negative sales, put a new, refreshed, and contemporary brand positioning out there that could give us room for growth, and also a concept extension that could earn the right to capital. We were owned by a publicly traded company, and they said, Mark, we have plenty of capital, but we've got some brands that we don't think are ready for it, and we would like yours to earn it, and that will help us grow as a broader enterprise, not just your brand. And I said, okay, challenge accepted. So I built a team, and we were inspired by this challenge. In only 2 years, we turned the brand around from double-digit negative sales to positive. We did a ton of research and came up with this really exciting new brand positioning, and it changed our menu, our design, and decor, and really allowed us to be more contemporary. And then put a new concept extension out there that allowed us to go from just primarily breakfast, brunch, and lunch to also include afternoon snack and dinner. And we put in a whole full bar. So we were really using every hour of the day as productively and profitably as possible. Instead of giving us the capital that we felt we'd earned, I got a call from the CEO saying the board has decided to move in a different direction. That whole thing.
Yes.
But don't worry. You're going to lead the sale process. They've decided they want to sell the brand. You guys have turned it around quicker than they thought. And they want to see if they can get a certain multiple. And that's how corporations work that are publicly traded. I get it. Even though I didn't see it coming, I said, okay. They said, you're going to lead the process, and we're going to give you a stay-on bonus and a sale bonus if it sells. But if not, if we don't get what we're looking for, nothing changes. We'll just keep moving forward. So I said, okay. And I was living up in Valencia, California at the time, and that's a suburb of LA, north and east of town. And those of you who know your geography know that Orange County is south and west of downtown. It would have been a 2 hour and 15, maybe 2 hour and a half, depending on traffic commute each way. So I couldn't do that. I would literally stay in a hotel. So Sunday night, after putting the kids to bed after dinner, I would drive down to a hotel right across from John Wayne Airport, where our company headquarters were located. I'd work a long day Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And Thursday after work, kind of after rush hour somewhat abated, it never fully does. But before road construction starts, there's a little window of opportunity, and I would drive home, and I would be home with my family Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And that's when I wasn't traveling to Ohio, where the parent company headquarters were, for board meetings, earnings calls, meeting, or in one of our 145 restaurants in 24 states. Huge sacrifice that I was making personally, and asking my new, pretty much almost all new executive team to make, because we were all committed to this turnaround, this career-defining story that we could all look back with and have a sense of deep pride in what we were doing. We were all aligned, and we worked our tail off. But to only hear now they're going to sell us. But then we thought, okay, this could be a great new opportunity. Instead of private equity firms that were the first in line, as they usually are, kicking tires and seeing how low they could, steal the brand for, a strategic play came on the scene. Someone that had owned restaurants and actually had 2 different manufacturing facilities that could also supply us with some of our food products. We thought this was a match made in heaven. The deal closed on a Friday, and we're drinking champagne, celebrating over the weekend. Monday morning at 8 o'clock, I have a meeting with the new CEO to plot our new future together. Lisa, at 8:05, I'm out the door. We've decided to move in a different direction. And I said, what, over the weekend? So I learned a pretty valuable lesson about corporate America. And not only was I let go, but my whole executive team within the next 2 weeks, as soon as they got all the information out of us they wanted, everybody was let go. Instead of keeping the brand in Southern California, where it had been since it started, as promised, they moved it to their U.S. headquarters in Dallas within 6 months. So I'm driving home, and after a fitful night of sleep, I get up early that next morning, and remember that was late February, and I take the dog out back, and Lisa's God is my witness. We had a fig tree in our backyard that was barren from the 5 or 6 weeks of winter we do get in Southern California. And as the sun was coming over the wall in our backyard, it shone on that fig tree, and there on one branch was this tiny little green sprig of a leaf just starting to bud. And it was in that exact moment I got this epiphany that a leaf is a symbol of growth and rebirth. I had just been through the darkest night of my career, maybe my life. And here the sun came up the next morning, and it shined on that fig tree, and it gave me this sense of inspiration. And I took the dog inside, and I went to my office and started banging out a treatment on my computer for this idea that leaf is a symbol of growth and rebirth. As I wrote the word leaf on a piece of paper, I got to thinking, when I was leading the brand, I used what was commonly known as the rule of threes. If you focus on 3 things, you're going to be more focused, more productive, and more profitable. And my 3 things were leadership, engagement, and accountability. And I would say Lisa is leading her team and doing a brilliant job of X, Y, and Z, and look at their results. I would say Lisa is engaging her team on a deeper level with their heart, their head, their hands, and their habits. And look what they're doing. Or Lisa's holding her team accountable for results. And look at the upside that they're receiving in their business results. So leadership, engagement, accountability was my mantra. I used it in all my communications, recognition and reward. And I got to thinking that morning after that happened, that those are still 3 important elements to success. But what was missing, we were sacrificing, all of us, burning the candle at both ends, early mornings, late nights, travel in all kinds of weather, and chasing numbers for the sake of numbers, only to be told we've decided to move in a different direction. We had the rug pulled out from under our success story. And then I got to thinking, so what was missing was a sense of fulfillment.
Yes.
So I wrote that down. And it's like leadership, engagement, accountability, and fulfillment. Not only is LEAF a symbol of growth and rebirth, it's an acronym that really stands. And I thought to think, well, how does it all come together? And I got to thinking about that fig tree in my backyard and the seasons it goes through. There are 4 seasons. Okay. So instead of the rule of 3s, I got to thinking, well, maybe there's a higher power of 4s. There are 4 seasons, not 3. There are 4 directions, not 3. There are 4 chambers to the human heart, not 3. There are 4 elements to an atom, the source of all life, not 3. And if you get my book, I literally have a page and a half of examples, right? So you get the idea. And so I then thought, what's the purpose of that whole Venn diagram? What's in the epicenter? And I thought, well, it's purpose, but purposeful growth. We all want to grow. And that fig tree's purpose in my backyard is to grow and grow through the leaf. As we all learned in middle school science, all growth in a plant or a tree happens through the leaf, through the magic of photosynthesis, right? But that's not its purpose. It's just to grow leaves, to grow a tree. It's to bear fruit. And indeed, fig fruit, which not only is sustenance for people and animals, but inside are seeds that can be scattered for future growth. And so I got this whole idea of revolution of each season revolves around the sun, right? And next year is a new year. Because I asked in the book, like, if you don't believe in the higher power of 4s and you think the rule of 3, which season would you omit? And some people might say, well, winter, I don't like the cold, or hot summer to where we live. But if you don't have all 4 seasons, you don't have the full transformation process that allows that plant or tree to grow into its full potential.
Yeah.
So
actually,
it became a presentation idea. And I shared it with some people who said, Mark, this should become a book. I'm like, well, I'm not an author. I mean, I'm a C-level executive. That's what I do. And I love building teams and I love building brands in that order. That's what I do. That's what I'm passionate about. They said, well, sounds like you've got an idea that it could really help other people. And I'm like, purpose. Oh, I've always felt like there was a red thread woven throughout my life and career that had me thinking about purpose. I didn't put my finger on it, but it really came down to being a servant leader and having that servant's heart. And if you do, then you have humility. And humility doesn't just mean being self-deprecating. It means being humble enough to know you don't know everything. And not only being open-minded, but open-hearted to learn and listen for not only people who are talking, books you can read, videos you can watch, but what about nature that's all around us? And I got to thinking what lessons I can learn from nature. And so the whole book is really built upon this idea of 4 seasons and 4 different aspects to personal and professional growth. That's purposeful growth based on lessons we can learn from nature.
Yes. There's so much in there that I'd like to unpack, and maybe if we can start with the seasons part. So there is a section in your book that was particularly inspiring to me when you're talking about almost really the different seasons we have life, where you broke it down between adolescent, youth, young adult, mature adult, and wise adult. So could you speak to that in reference to seasons, Mark?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't believe in coincidences, Lisa. And I believe God has put people and organizations in my place that has helped guide my path when I've lost my way. And one of them is called the Modern Elder Academy. And it's run by a guy named Chip Conley, a former hotelier who then was asked to be a senior executive at Airbnb. And his whole thing is, what if we looked at midlife as a season? We think about adolescence and we think about, elderly, but what about people who are elders who are wise? And what if we could unpack and unlock wisdom at scale? And he's got a great TED Talk. It's all about looking at midlife as not a crisis, but a chrysalis. And you should look it up. It's only about 3.5 minutes, but it's brilliant. And it really spoke to me about this idea that we're all in different seasons. So if you're new in your career, this book can provide you with a roadmap, because I wrote it as if it were, me mentoring a young Mark Mears. What would I tell him then that I know now to avoid, to pursue? And so if you're young in your career, you could say, oh, what can I learn from a guy who's been around the block and has had the good, the bad, the ugly happen to him? And what lessons can I learn? Or if I'm in middle management and maybe I'm a little bit frustrated that my career arc is not going the way I thought it would go, what inspiration might I find there? Or what if you're a leader and you're not really prepared for this new world of work, which has changed so much since COVID? We're hearing now research from Deloitte that was published this summer, I believe, that said nearly 90% of Gen Z and millennials want purpose at work. So it's not like it was in my day, where it was, keep your nose to the grindstone. Don't bring that weak crap in here. I don't want to hear about your personal life. I just need you to get the work done. And that's like, come in tomorrow and do it again, right? Not the way it is today. And that's why we have had the great resignation that happened as a part of COVID. The Sloan School of Management at MIT did a study, a global study of 34 million people who'd left the workforce during COVID, and asked them a simple question: why? The number one answer, Lisa, by 10x over the second most given answer, was toxic work environment. It's as if people said, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not going back to that unsatisfying status quo. And you've seen the rise of the gig economy. You've seen people doing side hustles, because it's not today among younger people about the myth of work-life balance that those of us of a certain age bought into. And notice I called it a myth, because it's just not true. They want to make it true by flipping it around and not saying work-life balance, but life, work, purpose.
Yes,
and
that
that's
makes
so
sense.
important. And so now if you're a leader, you're like, how do I lead differently than the way I've always been taught, or the way I've had role models throughout my career that maybe weren't the best? This book is for you. Or if you're looking for a second or third act, depending on where you are in a later season of life, maybe you're inspired to really think about, well, more than just making money. And I came up with my own purpose statement. I had to drink my own Kool-Aid, right? Yeah. And I wrote, I don't want to just make money and retire. I want to make a difference and inspire. And that means making a difference in the lives of others and inspiring them to want to do likewise, or what I call paying it backward. If you remember in the book, that's a big part of the book. Yeah. It's not only am I a growth junkie, I love growth in all of its forms, personal, relational, professional, and spiritual. But I'm also a Starbucks junkie. So when I go through the drive-thru, it's not a random act of kindness, because I do it every time. So it's an intentional act of kindness. I will pay the car behind me. And when I get up to the window, I'll simply tell the Starbucks team member, I'd like to pay for the car behind me. And they say, oh, that's so nice. I'm like, but can you do me a favor? Like, oh, no, what? Just tell them, God bless you, your debt has been paid. And then I'll drive away. I'll say a silent prayer for that person. They don't know me. I don't know them. I have no idea what they're going through. But I got to believe, Lisa, in that moment, they feel they matter to somebody else, someone they'll never meet. And they feel valued, right?
Yeah, they really do. And I think the point that you bring up about, these younger generations that are looking for purpose at work, it has been almost a line in the sand that has been drawn. I think during the pandemic, it was a chance for everybody to pause and look up and say, wait a minute, what am I doing? Yeah. I noted that your book came out, I believe it was in 2022. So in the middle of the pandemic, when the term was the Great Resignation. But Mark, you have repositioned that term, have you not?
Yeah, I prefer the great repurposing, because when you think about the word resign, that means someone has quit and just walked away. Or, as we're hearing now, maybe they've quit and they've stayed. Quiet quitting is what the kids call it. The point is, they lack engagement. They lack a sense of purpose. Why am I here? They are yearning for it, because you're absolutely right, Lisa. It's as if COVID gave us all a bit of a time out to reflect deeply on not only what, but who matters most in our lives. Now, we may have gotten COVID ourselves, or a family member might have been hospitalized, or God forbid, someone we know died as a result of it. We were all told to shelter in place. How ominous does that sound?
Yes.
And every time we turned on the news, there was something new going on. And we were like, this wasn't a red or blue thing, as much as people want to politicize it. This isn't a white or black thing, male or female thing. It's a global thing. We were all, it's part of the pandemic. We were all equally affected. Now, older people more than younger people, you could say. But the point was, this wasn't something that was a random thing. It was with us, and it will be with us for a while. And so in this new normal, when people were able to go back to work, they said, I don't want to go back to do what I used to do. I hated that. I want to do something that makes me feel alive. I want to do something that makes me feel purposeful, like I'm making a difference beyond just purpose. And so I look at it as purpose and profit, and not or. And so another organization I'm part of is called Conscious Capitalism, as you mentioned in my introduction, elevating humanity through business. We all need to earn a paycheck, right? But what if we could do it in a way that made society better, our communities better, the world better? And we can, and it's been done. I cite several examples in the book, and probably the most notable, maybe the most recognizable, is Patagonia, whose mission is we're in business to save our home planet. They didn't say we're in business to sell more outdoor gear. They said we're in business to save our home planet. And the way we do it is through selling outdoor gear. And the way we kind of prove that we're not just about profit is we don't tell you to come buy some new jacket if yours is damaged. We tell you to bring it to us so we can fix it for you. Right? And we donate X and Y and Z to all communities that are trying to do something that allows our earth to be more sustainable and to continue for generations beyond us. That, to me, is a company I'd like to work for. But maybe we don't have to do it on that global scale. That's fine. Maybe we can look at our own sphere of influence and say, well, maybe we can do something right in our community. Maybe we can do something for the families of the team members who work for us. Maybe that's what purpose means. But it means different things to different people. And the reason I like the word purposeful versus purpose is, purpose is a noun. It's a thing. It's like, where's my purpose? I think I left it somewhere. But purposeful is an action word. We take action every single day. And Lisa, I don't know about you, but as I mentioned before, we have many, many differences. But among all of us, we're all human beings with 24 hours in a given day. Not one of us has a minute more or a minute less, right? And it's how we use the time we're given to fulfill our purpose, whatever it may be, in a way that not only enriches ourselves, our families, but our communities. And I look at the stakeholders. I'm so glad that you mentioned and emphasized stakeholder value, not shareholder value. They're part of it, but there are 4 stakeholders: our team members, our customers or guests, as I call them in the restaurant and hospitality industry, our business partners, and that's anybody in our business ecosystems. It could be shareholders if we're publicly traded. It could be investors, but it could also be our supplier partners, our distributor partners, our agency partners. Notice I emphasize the word partners, because you are part of the ecosystem and you will help us achieve our purpose if you know about it, if you buy into it, if you can help support it. And then our communities are a tremendous beneficiary of the great work that we can do when we're more of a purposeful growth organization with a purposeful growth heart and mindset to allow our team members to feel like they're really making a difference.
So, Mark, when you talk about the ecosystem, when you're talking about all these partners too, I think there's also the ecosystem of humanity. So when we speak to Gen Z and millennials, perhaps the younger generations to what maybe you and I are, but you and I actually met online at a Chip Conley event. All right. So we were there. And one thing that really stuck out to me that was really impactful is Chip mentioned that midlife can now be categorized between the ages of 35 and 75. That's 40 years of midlife, because what's happening actually really ties into your mission statement. And I have it here in front of me. I don't want to just make money and retire. I want to make a difference and inspire. And so what has happened, and this is, the narrative that we were given coming up, is we all work until we reach a retirement age, which has traditionally been 65. At that point, if you were still working with that type of company, you got a gold watch, you got some type of reward, you were walked out the door, and then you would get to do what you would love to do, what you would like to do, and whatever. But that was retirement. Now we are seeing that people are not ready to walk away. They want the community. They want the camaraderie. They want the feeling of contribution. And so tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in your own life or with people that are at the traditional age of retirement, where they do want to make a difference and inspire. How could you help guide them in that thought?
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad that resonated with you, because I go on to say that means making a positive difference in the lives of others, but inspiring them to want to do likewise. And that's that ripple effect that I talk about. So thinking about that Starbucks example, when I pay for the car behind me, there's something called the law of reciprocity, which suggests that if someone does something nice for you, you feel a deep-seated urge to do something nice for somebody else, and often in greater measure. So imagine if the car behind me pays for the car behind them, and the car behind them, and the car behind them. I'm told it happens. And so imagine all the different people whose lives have been blessed by one simple, generous, but very intentional act of kindness. And so I would say that every one of us can do something, right? It doesn't have to be something, again, on a global scale, but within our sphere of influence, we need to be introspective to say what lights us up. For example, I'm in a men's group at my church, and we meet on Saturday mornings and we do a book study. It's not a Bible study, but we study Christian books and we talk about them. But almost everybody to a person is either retired or close to retired from their corporate world, but every one of them has a passion. One gentleman is really passionate about a backpack program. Right. Another one's into the food truck. Another one's into a foster care program that's wonderful. Another one is into social justice and racial justice. That would be me. Another one is into mission trips and teaching high school kids on Sunday school. I mean, every one of them is finding something to add value beyond just going out and playing golf or whatever, and putting your feet up. And, my dad, who's now passed away, worked for the same company for 40 years. And they had, at the time, a mandatory retirement age at 60. So it didn't matter. He was the head of sales for this company. Even the president had to walk away at age 60. So I happen to have just turned 63. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm as productive as I've ever been. I'm as knowledgeable and wise as I've ever been. I'm as passionate about what I do as I've ever been. Imagine if I would have had to put away what I'm doing now 3 years ago. What would the world be like had I not written this book? Right?
Right.
I mean, what impact would be left on the table if we don't continue to pursue things that are purposeful beyond just looking at ourselves? And I thought it would be criminal if I took all these experiences observations of those I admire, curation of research and subject matter experts that are in this book. And I just took it to my grave. That to me would be selfish. And I just want to challenge your listeners and viewers as we look at the end of this year. I often get very introspective at the end of every year. And I usually kind of take stock in, well, what did I accomplish this year? And celebrate it for a moment, but then think, what now can I do different or better in the upcoming year? And so I understand that this is going to be aired at the end of this month in December, and I think the last day of the year. So hopefully by the time you read this, you'll have done the introspection part. And I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions per se, but I am a fan of goals because I think that's a different way of looking at it. And the goals need to be attainable. Like if I'm going to go run a marathon and I haven't put on my sneakers in several months, I'm just not going to do it. And we all know that 95% of New Year's resolutions are gone within the first couple of weeks of January, right? But make goals about not only what you would like to be in 2025, but maybe more importantly, who do you want to be in 2025? And put that into two separate columns, and then think about the overlap between them. And I think that's going to give you a deeper sense of purpose. And as we were talking before recording, that the first person you had in the season 3 talked about Ikigai. And it's in my book as well. And it is a Japanese model, kind of like the French have with raison d'etre. I'm sure I got it wrong, which is reason for being. And they also use this 4-circle Venn diagram that I learned well after I'd created mine. But it's kind of like, well, what are you really good at? What do you like to do? What do you like to learn? And, how might that be applied to benefit others? And who would you need to be able to accomplish those goals? So you can't just say, here's what I'm interested in. Like me, I like to play golf. When people ask me if I'm a golfer, I'll say no, but I love to play golf, because if I said I was a golfer, that would kind of denote some higher level of excellence that I don't possess. Even though my dad was a brilliant golfer, played in college, and unfortunately I didn't get his genes, but I got his love for the game. But you can love something and not be good at it. So you got to also orchestrate that mindset of, what do I love to do and learn about, and what am I really good at? And, how do I apply it in a way that the world needs something from me as a result of it? And then, of course, how do I make money doing it? And I believe those are the 4 key aspects of Ikigai. So that's a great model for those of you to think about. What do I love to do and learn about? What am I really good at? What does the world need from me? And how can I make money and earn a living doing it, right? Yeah. And that's on the what do you want to be. The who do you want to be is a little more introspective. And that comes back to your values. There's an exercise that I've done several times where people give you a long list of values and you check, well, which ones are your top 3? You can probably find that online. But for me, purpose is a value, right? An abundant mindset is a value. The idea of being outer directed instead of inner directed is a value. I don't know if those are my top 3, but they're up there. What are they for you? So not only what do you want to be in 2025, but as important, if not more important, who do you want to be?
Yeah. So that plays right into another section of your book. As we get here near towards the end of our conversation, you talk about the 4 dimensions of you. I don't know if you have those right at the top of your head. Yep. I can always prompt you, but they all start with the word who. Mm-hmm. So the first one, Mark, is who you think you are.
Yeah.
Would you like to explain that one a little?
Well, we're all whole people. And as you've noted throughout the book, I use a 4-circle Venn diagram and as a model, because it's not the answer for everything, but it's an answer for a lot of things. And I look at this higher power of fours versus the rule of threes. And I always try to say, when someone says there's three of something, almost like a prism, if I twist it a certain way, maybe I can see a fourth thing through the light that's hidden there. So the four dimensions of you are, who do you think you are? Because we all have a certain mindset, and based on our emotional intelligence, that leads to the next one is who are you actually, right? And then who do others see you being? So then you're getting feedback from others. And then really importantly, who do you wish to become, right? So like a four-circle Venn diagram, we're all of those things, right? But we should be revolving around purposeful growth. So the feedback we get, and I wrote, feedback is oftentimes couched as a gift. That is, until it's given to you, right? But you have to, that's where humility comes in. You have to be humble enough to say, and trust me, I've received some pretty scorching feedback throughout my life and my career. And even recently with a good friend who I'm working on a consulting project, and he gave me some tips, and he said, permission to give you some feedback. And I said, sure. And he told me, and my first reaction was, that hurts. But my second reaction is he cared enough about me to try to make me better, to see something maybe I didn't see in myself. So, it's important to have a positive self-image. Who do you think you are? But it's important to peel back the onion and say, well, who are you really? And you can take tests like DISC, you can take Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finders, and they will allow you to kind of get a vision of who you are from that perspective. Your personality, how you tend to show up, what you like, what you don't like. And then whether it's 360 reviews or the good old fashioned do more of, less of, and eliminate, which I outline in the book, you get feedback from others, right? And then you say, with all that, who do I want to become? And each of those four are important. And we have to go through that whole process, and we have to do it over and over, which is this revolutionary process. A leaf comes from a tree that comes from the four seasons, and the next year's different. The next year, if we cut that tree open at the end of its life, we'll see tree rings, right? Representing each annual cycle of its life. And there'll be some ragged, some dark, depending on what happened that year, right? So that's going to be us as well as human beings. We're also living organisms like that tree, that big tree in my backyard. We're going to keep getting hopefully better and better and better and bearing more and more fruit. And to me, that's what life's all about.
Yeah. So as we talk about cycles, I think what has happened as a result of our pause during the pandemic, as a result of people showing up, wanting to contribute more, to feel valued, to have purpose, to have a connection to some of these same principles that we see in conscious capitalism. We are going to be in a place within corporate America, and I'm seeing this a lot. I'm seeing many of my clients who are leaving corporate to start their own business, who are leaving corporate to look for something that is more purposeful. They are saying, I want to do something that matters. So, Mark, in your perspective, as you consult with companies, what are you able to give insight to these leaders who have been trained that this is the way we work in corporate America, and you either need to get on board or don't go with us? They're being called in to lead in a climate that has not existed before. What hope can we give those leaders? What training can we give those leaders to be able to lead this new type of worker?
Yeah, great question, Lisa. And think again of that four-circle Venn diagram. Most of us who are just starting out are doers, right? And it's very functional. I need a job, right? But if I'm a good doer, I often get promoted to be a manager.
Yes.
So if a doer is functional, I need a job. A manager is more transactional. It's more about, we learn in some business schools, there's called schools of management, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're probably pretty good at managing projects and budgets and resources and timelines and metrics of performance, but not people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm someone that works for you, and by the way, Lisa, in my career, I've never said anyone works for me. I say they work with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now turning that model on its head to say, actually, I work for you. We'll get there in a second. But if you're a manager and you've been taught just to manage by the numbers and wash, rinse, and repeat, the person that works on your team, and I call them team members. I hate the word employees, but let's just say for the lack of, clarity around where people are going these days, they still call them employees. Even the great Korn Ferry, who I love, global executive search firm, and Gary Burnison, head of it, they still call them employees. They still use the term boss. And someone who comes from journalism background, marketing communications, I love the fact that words matter.
Yes.
And if you think about the word boss and you look up the etymology of it, it comes from the Dutch. Okay. So if people really, we indiscriminately because they're in vernacular, but that's why I like to twist that prism behind that. For a boss, you're going to have this attitude, you.
Mm-hmm.
So right, and be a better leader. It's a multi-billion conferences, seminars, podcasts, books like mine about, right? I think you get about 17 billion with a B.
Yeah.
So, know how. But those who figure it out, now it's more. So we go from function to transaction to relational. And now that team paying it backward, and that gets us to from leader to when transforming people. Well, I will follow you. They'll say when it's my turn to lead, I will lead like you, if not better.
Yeah. And that
4 or 5 direct reports, ripple effect. You and don't you know when they get into leadership positions, form the command and control man that no longer serves us into a more relational, humanistic leadership. Our business and our communities.
Yes. And that humanistic leading style really connects to a new project that you're working on, right?
Yeah. It's hard when you think about it, changing paradigms of place. And it's another word that's thrown out there and understood and for the word community. Culture may just be part of, and that's the place someone feels they belong. And notice I emphasize the word feels in both examples. Right? And often we're seeing now stories of backlash. Well, Ford is going to start rolling back DEI practices. Companies is doing like right. They're looking at diversity as some box, a correct box to check of some woke, instead of understanding the true leverageable advantage for your firm. So issue that can get around one humanistic idea, right? It's the most powerful force in the universe. And in my view, as LEAF is a model of leadership, engagement, accountability, and fulfillment. This builds on that. And it says love is a model which L stands for listen. Mm-hmm. O stands for observe. V stands for value, and E stands for empower. And let me quickly break that down for you because it's so important. For leaders to learn how to be legacy builders, they must do so with love. We all need, this goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you get past, food and water and safety and shelter and reproduction, you get to basically some humanistic needs, being valued, loved, seen, heard, right? We all need to feel seen and heard. So when you are listened to, you feel like you matter. And not just listening as a leader to someone on your team, a team member, what they're saying, which you should, with empathy and understanding, but listen to what they're not saying. We have to be naive to think that there may not be, a great day happening for every team member. Maybe there's something going on outside of work. Maybe a team member's caring for an elderly parent. Maybe they have a sick kid that needs surgery. They have no idea how they're going to pay for it. Maybe they're having relationship issues with their spouse. And they may not just tell you all this, right? Because they don't maybe know if they can trust you with that information. But a leader would then ask questions. Is there something else going on? I notice you're coming late or you're leaving early or your work quality isn't what it used to be. Lisa, I just want to know, is there something else going on? Is there anything else I can do to help you? And all of a sudden now, maybe if there's not, you can still feel like your leader is listening to you. And then observing. One of the Gallup poll, State of the Global Workplace study results that I study all the time is based on what are the dissatisfiers? What are the elements that make people feel disengaged at work? Mm-hmm. And they're maybe lack of connection to mission and purpose at work, lack of clarity on what I'm supposed to be doing, lack of frequent feedback as to how I'm doing, lack of progress discussions, ability to, not lack of ability to do what I do best, lack of ability to learn and grow, and get this, lack of feeling cared about at work, right? So then I started aligning each of those with the love model, the listening, right? I mentioned that, right? Feeling like I matter, my voice matters. The idea of observing, thinking about Coach Andy Reid for the Kansas City Chiefs. I happen to live in Kansas City. So he doesn't wait till the end of the season to do some kind of annual performance appraisal. He's observing and coaching and encouraging and critiquing in real time, on the practice fields, in the team rooms, in the film rooms, before games, during games, halftime and after games, right? So by observing someone and coaching and encouraging and mentoring them in real time, you're showing that you care, right? Mm-hmm. And then value the whole person, not just as a worker, right? But we all have 4, I think, spheres of service that make us a whole person. Personal, ourselves. Relational, those we love. Professional, those we serve at work. And spiritual in some way, shape, or form, whether you're religious or not. Mm-hmm. I think we all believe there's some kind of ethereal spirit that binds us together. And some might even say it's love. And then if you're valuing someone, not only you're giving them fair compensation and benefits, and not only are you giving them recognition and reward when they do well, those are entry fee aspects to valuing someone. If you truly value something or someone, you invest in them, right? If I value something, I invest in it because I want it to grow. So I might say, hey, Lisa, you've been kind of talking about your interest in AI lately. What if you were to go to the seminar in the Bay Area that I heard about and learn about AI and then come back and kind of tell us about maybe what you learned? And you might say, that's great. I feel valued because you're investing in me, giving me time away from work, flying me to the Bay Area to be part of this, think tank of people trying to really figure out what can AI do to improve not only my personal performance, but our team performance. And so then empower is important. If we just stopped with V and had listen, observe, and value, that might be enough. but not if you really want to be a legacy builder, because that's where you empower people to grow into their full potential. And the example I always cite, Lisa, is that when I learned to ride a bike, I remember, I don't know what age I was, but I got a bike for my birthday. It was a beautiful blue Schwinn Stingray with a banana seat and a mag back wheel and cool handlebars. But I had training wheels on it to start with because I wasn't old enough or big enough yet to ride myself. So I'd tool around the neighborhood and no, I can't fall over because I've got training wheels to guide me and keep me balanced. Well, I remember one Saturday morning, my dad wakes me up and says, son, it's time to take the training wheels off. Are you ready? And I had this kind of conflicting thought of, absolutely, I've been waiting for this day. I want to be like the big kids. But then also trepidation and a little fear of the unknown. Whenever we do something we've never done, that's usually kind of where we land, is both, inspiration and maybe some level of fear. So I remember we were in the garage taking the training wheels off. Then we get outside and on the sidewalk, and he's not only telling me what to do, he's walking alongside me and he's guiding me. And then he's telling me, Mark, don't, stop pedaling because you'll lose speed and you may start to wobble. And if you do that, don't overcorrect your handlebars because then you'll fall. And sure enough, I did both of those things and fell a few times. But I remember when I got it and I rode down to the end of the street, I was able to stop on my own, turn the bike around and pedal back to the edge of the driveway where my dad was waiting. And in my mind's eye, I can see it as we're talking today, that I don't know whose grin was bigger, his or mine. Because in that moment, I was empowered to do what I'm capable of doing. I just needed a push. I needed guidance. My neighborhood got bigger. My world got bigger as I lived on that bike that summer and subsequent summers. So what if we were able to empower people and give them that same sense of freedom in the workplace? Listening to them, observing them, valuing them, and empowering them. All we need is love, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we have been motivated by a fear-driven organization or a fear-driven approach versus this love one, and I'm very excited about what you're doing here. But Mark, really what you are summarizing here is one thing that I picked up when we spoke before. I wrote down, if we are in the people business, we have to be in the feelings business. Yeah. So we have all of that. So I'd like to encourage people to pick up Mark's book. And I know he's got another one in development, so stay tuned for that. And Mark, you also have an assessment for our listeners, do you not?
I do. It follows the 4 key divisions of the book. And you can find it on my website, which is markamears.com. And it takes about 5 or 6 minutes to fill out. And when you're done, I will then send you a custom report as a PDF with your results, as well as some seeds for growth from me within each area. And it gives you kind of a benchmark of where are you currently, in what season of life are you in, and how are you understanding and embracing this concept of purpose in both your life and your work. And then as a result of that, maybe you want to learn more. Maybe you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, follow my LinkedIn newsletter, be a subscriber. Maybe we should connect and have a conversation. It's how I can help support you along your purposeful growth journey.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being with us today. Thank you for helping us wrap up Season 3 to end with purpose. We started with purpose. We're ending with purpose. So thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure, Lisa. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to all you listeners. And that wraps up Season 3 for us. I can't believe we have been through 155 episodes, the last 155 Tuesdays. If you spent all or part of them with me, I really want to thank you and remind you that follow your passion. It will help reveal your purpose, and you will show up with that personal brand of integrity. My wish for you is that you enjoy the journey along the way as you discover your legendary self. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next week.